All right. Scholars of Lancaster Bible College, I'm sorry I'm not able to join you live tonight. Turns out I'm traveling for a conference and some of my travel times got bumped around and I'm scheduled to be on a train when I'm supposed to be with you guys. I would rather be with you guys. Let's begin first with a brief devotional. So last week you started talking about ancient Rome. And ancient Rome was founded as a monarchy in like 710 BC, about the time that Assyria was carting off the northern kingdoms of Israel. And the monarchy lasted from the early 700s BC to 509 BC, when there was an event that you should have read about that caused the Roman people to throw up their arms and get rid of a king forever and establish the Roman Republic. Well, it's interesting. That is going on about the same time as the rise of Athens. It's going on around the same time that the Jews were returning from Babylon back to Jerusalem. And the Jews were rebuilding the temple, rebuilding the wall, rebuilding the city. And Judah's neighbors were not happy that Jerusalem was being reestablished as a powerful city with Persian backing, right? So a bunch of the other neighboring governors complained to King Darius I of Persia and saying, wait, no, they can't rebuild, they're rebuilding without authorization. So Darius commissioned a search of the records of the Persian Empire, of Babylon. And we read in Ezra 6, verses 1 and 2, King Darius then issued an order, and they searched in the archives stored in the treasury at Babylon. A scroll was found in the citadel of Ecbatana in the province of Media. And this was written on it, and then was the edict of Cyrus allowing the Jews to return back to Jerusalem. All these things are going on at the same time. As these Jews are returning back to Jerusalem, they might have no awareness that the Roman Republic, which would become the Roman Empire for our studies this week, was forming. In other words, God has been at work all over the ancient globe to bring about his purposes. And through the Roman Empire, we would get a Pax Romana, we would get a system of roads, we would get a legal structure that allowed the gospel to go forth. And that is what you're studying in our work for this week, right? Before we get into our work for this week, I want to discuss briefly the two myths, the founding myths of Rome, and to help us think through Christianly, what do we make of them? And these two myths, Romulus and Remus and Aeneas, came about around the same time, right before Rome or right after Rome became an empire. So Rome had a change in government, and it's seeking to justify this change of government. So they put forward these histories. Virgil wrote the Aeneid, and the most complete version of Romulus and Remus is through Livy, a historian. But Virgil tells the story of Aeneas, this guy who lived in the city of Troy. And Aeneas was commissioned by the god Jupiter to take his father and his son and leave Troy the night before the Trojan horse allowed the Greeks to conquer Troy, and go and found a new Troy somewhere. So Aeneas agrees, and he takes his father, the past, and his son, the future, and goes on this epic quest to found a new Troy. And they stop in Carthage, and Aeneas falls in love with Queen Dido. They're going to get married. And Jupiter reappears to Aeneas saying, what are you doing? I didn't tell you to go to Carthage and fall in love. I told you to go found a new Troy. You're shirking your civic responsibility. So Aeneas, I believe on his wedding day, wakes up before the crack of dawn. Him and his merry men sail away from Carthage. Queen Dido awakens just in time to see Aeneas sailing into the sunrise, and she kills herself. And Aeneas eventually arrives on the boot of Italy, And there was a prophecy that when Aeneas' men eat their plates, they will know where to found this new city. And Aeneas sees his men making the bread, the cornmeal, and putting on a leaf and rolling it up, essentially inventing the first burrito, right, and eating it. And Aeneas says, oh, my men are eating their plates. This is where we're to found a new Troy. And in one very moving passage in the Aeneid, Jupiter explains why Aeneas had to leave Carthage and found this new Troy, so that this new Troy would, quote, rule mankind and make the world obey. That's the mission statement for Rome. It was their destiny to conquer everyone and to impose their will on everyone. Was there really a historic Aeneas that was commissioned by the god Jupiter? No. No. But what we get in this thesis statement, in this myth, is an accurate description of how the Romans saw themselves. Right? They saw themselves as their divine destiny to conquer all peoples and make them obey. And this is what Pilate tried to do to Christ, to get Christ to kind of confess and avoid execution. Christ would not be conquered by Rome. Right? Second myth is Romulus and Remus, where Aeneas did not found a city, but the region. Romulus and Remus had this divine commission to found a city, and one wanted to found the city on Capitoline Hill, I think it was, or Esquiline Hill, and Romulus wanted to found it on Palatine Hill, and they appealed to the gods, okay, whose city plan is the best one, and an eagle landed on Palatine Hill, which was a sign from the gods that Romulus was right. Remus couldn't abide, and he was constantly taunting Romulus, who carved out like the city limits, and Remus was always flaunting those boundaries by jumping over it. So Romulus kills his brother. And we see that as horrible. Oh my goodness, how can you kill your brother over something as stupid as crossing a line? I mean, we did this consistently as children, right? For those of you who know, Remus would be categorized by Charlie Murphy as a habitual line stepper. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But in the ancient Roman psyche, if your destiny is to conquer the world and make them obey, well, then killing your brother, yeah, okay, it has to happen every once in a while, right? Was that a historical story? Well, chances are the very first king of Rome was Romulus, was a man named Romulus. We don't hear too much about Remus because he lost. But it does tell us something about how Rome saw themselves. And when you look at how Rome saw themselves as this divinely ordained ruling power whose destiny it is to conquer everything and everyone, we now know why Rome had such a problem with Christianity. Christians would not pledge their allegiance to the emperor. Christians would not be conquered. Christians started to spread faster than Rome could contain them. So now we see why Romans thought they were such a threat. And in your reading, you'll talk about the crisis of the 3rd century and the political machinations that led to the universal persecution of Christians. Great story, but you can get that from the book. But I wanted to just review that with you to set up why Christianity and Rome had such a problem with each other, and then they didn't. Right. So for this week, your assignments include listening to the lecture by Dr. Spanger, taking a quiz. Your reading includes Chadwick chapter 1, Graham, the Romans book, chapters 5 and 6, and Acts chapters 2 and 15. You have a response to that. You have a little project with the conciliar model where you read Chadwick chapter 3 and an excerpt from Justin Martyr. You have a research paper thesis that's due. You guys completed your first 4-page paper. That cycle starts over again. And you have a primary source reflection of 200 or 300 words. Another reason why I don't feel as if I can have a live Zoom tonight is I'm spending some time with your 4-page papers, and it's my job to have those done by tomorrow so you can learn from this before you have to turn in your thesis. If it goes smoothly, it'll be by tomorrow. If it doesn't go smoothly, it'll be by Thursday. But the reason why this one is going to take a lot longer is because of the thoughtfulness I will put in my responses to you, mainly to help you understand how to do the second one well. So I appreciate your time. If you have any questions about the assignments or about the material, shoot me an email. Always an option. I love good emails. Love good emails, especially emails that allow me to talk about nerd things. Those are always cool things for me. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your work. We are more than halfway done with this course. So I encourage you, stay on top of things, do things with excellence, and we will see each other next week. Thank you.